We call it workforce housing. We're just reinforcing this whole idea that people of a lower income than that are not even really part of the workforce, that they're either not working or they're not working well, or they don't work in an important enough job to deserve housing. It's a very disturbing implication, right? And most low-income people, most residents of affordable housing, most residents of public housing, even a substantial portion of homeless folks are working, right? They're part of the workforce, and they're an essential part of the workforce. My name is Miriam Axel-Lute. I'm the CEO and editor-in-chief of Shelterforce Magazine. We're a national scope, 45-year-old nonprofit publication that covers affordable housing and community development for the people who are working in the field in one way or another or have a deep interest. The leading publication that's focused on this issue. Lots of people come to us and say when they got their start in housing, they learned about the topics and what they were doing from reading copies of Shelterforce. So, we send a weekly newsletter out to over 12,000 people, and many of them share it with their entire staff. The language we choose matters, and it matters beyond what we're doing right now. It might help us win a battle and make it harder to win the war. The type of housing that gets called workforce housing is that in order to get it approved, sometimes we fall into reinforcing other negative ideas about affordable housing or about the residents who might live in it by using this phrase. So we use this phrase workforce housing, and when we use it to mean, as it usually is, really moderate income housing, or something that extends from sometimes 60, but often is used to really mean 80 or 100, 120% of area median income. In many places, we really do need to figure out how to get more housing that's in that band. We define workforce as those making entry-level professional salaries. We perpetuate a false vision of what our current economy, how it works, who's a worker, and that's not going to do us any favors in larger housing policy fights and larger economic policy fights or funding fights. If we use, but it's okay, it's workforce housing, as an argument to get around objections to housing that's targeted to those or includes those with lower incomes, we're tacitly saying that those objections have merit, that it's okay to try to prevent affordable housing from being built in communities because it'll have effects on property values or because of prejudice or other things which aren't true. And if we say, well, this is okay because it's workforce housing, we're giving more legitimacy to those arguments than they should have. It means we don't give enough attention to the various worker protections that are needed by folks who are in essential workforce. They don't take seriously enough the needs of people who are doing gig work. We focus instead on tax policy that supports the middle class, which is certainly better than tax policy that supports the super 0.1%, but it still leaves out this huge section of our essential workers. Recognizing that more broadly will give us much more sustainable policy that addresses inequality.
How do you balance that?
That's a very tricky political question. Providing more housing that is accessible to those at the lower income ends supports those upstream. So we hear a lot about filtering in the other direction, but filtering actually, the effect is even more strong going up. Do what you can do with other means, with market means at the moderate and middle income levels, then you make sure to preserve the subsidy for the range of incomes where it's most necessary.
What are ways to refer to a market subsidized bandwidth of housing doesn't include the word workforce?
Affordable at a certain income or priced at a certain income, but doesn't involve a subsidy. It's just housing. It's smaller housing, it's entry-level housing, it's moderate income housing, middle income housing. There's a lot of different ways to describe it, and I think it may vary on your context. I would say what you mean. If you mean smaller, denser infill that is affordable to people at a certain income range, or that is just costs this much, and everybody will know what that means in terms of affordability. I would just be direct about it.
Perfect. Well, Miriam, thank you so much for your time.
Take care.